joining us today for our first Ally Panel with the Dish Women's Network. We are extremely excited to have a conversation action-oriented on how men can be involved in the diversity conversation and particularly be allies for women in the workplace. As a regular part of leading the Dish Women's Network over the last 3 years, I've been asked, first of all, if men are invited to be included, which you are. Thank you for coming. And also, why does it matter that you are in the conversation? Right now, women make up about 50% of the workforce, and yet as you go up each level in management, that number starts to dwindle. If we're going to have an impact on that in the long term, we all need to be part of the conversation, and everybody needs to be involved. So as part of that, I have been very lucky to have these 4 gentlemen volunteer to be on our Ally panel. And I'm going to give them brief introductions each, but we'll also let them kind of share their stories and why they wanted to be part of this. I'm going to start with Vivek. He is our CTO, but more importantly for the Women's Network, he is our executive sponsor. We got started on this initiative about 3.5 years ago, and he was really a driving force and a champion for this initiative. It was something that we really didn't know how to get started, and we didn't know how to go through the steps for really starting the first internal network, and we couldn't have gotten to where we are today without him. We also have Jeremy Van Essen, who's our IT liaison for the Dish Women's Network program. He is a driving force for making sure that people across the IT org know about the Women's Network and can get involved. We also have Mike Danley, who leads quite a few teams up in Sling and has been a really great example of getting women into tech and making sure that the women on his team have a career path and are supported. And Nick Rossetti, who has very graciously stepped in for Rob, who accidentally scheduled a meeting on the same day. We'll let him off the hook, but he's going to be on the next one. He's not getting out of it. And Nick has been a huge champion for women on his team. Renee won one of our Women's Network awards last year, and he is known throughout the company for deploying talent that he develops across the organization. So we have some really fantastic leaders here today. I'm super grateful that they are sitting up here. It's a vulnerable position to be in, being men talking about diversity. It's not always a comfortable conversation, so we're going to keep it really positive, really exciting, and I'm excited because I know each of them have some really valuable insight to share with you. So with that,
and thanks for organizing this, and
yes.
Thanks for all the volunteers.
By the way,
and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and thank you. And for those of you that I have not met, my name is Michelle. I run the Women's Network here, and I'll be available afterwards for any questions that you guys have. So with that, I'd like to get started with kind of each of you just talking through why you're here today, what diversity means to you, and also just give us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So I'll start. Been here at Dish it'll be 9 years on June 30th. Not really counting. But you know, I mean, personally, I have a wife, 2 kids. I grew up with a sister, and kind of I myself am a diversity candidate, if you may so call it. So for me, it's just important to be, inclusion is important. So it's not necessarily just about women's network. It's about it's overall inclusion. And when I look at my overall life experiences, I've had the good fortune to be working with many different people where I was included to be part of their circles. I had the good fortune of going to a school which was very diverse. Actually, even when I think about India, India is kind of a very diverse in its own way, and I had friends which you might call them all Indians, but we spoke different languages, ate different types of food. We were all. I'm married to my wife is from a different part of India. We don't speak the same language, so included in her family, and when I came here, I have some great friends. Great coworkers, and when I think about inclusion overall, I've had the good fortune to be included. I've never felt left out, and I think inclusion is important. So part of that, when we started the network 3.5 years ago, really it was Michelle and Paris at that time who were passionate about it, and I wanted to do whatever I could, from an inclusion standpoint.
Jeremy.
Hi guys, I'm Jeremy Van Essen. I've actually been here at Dish for a little over 8 years now. Had the fortune to spend about 5 years in sales and moved over to IT. And so I'm here for a variety of different reasons, but the primary reason is I came from a family of very strong, very independent women. My grandmother was a farm girl, and if any of you know farmers, they are tough, hardy people, but yet she had that soft, gentle spirit that a grandmother needs to have. My mother is CEO of a major foundation. My wife is a 17-year veteran of Aurora Police Dispatching. So she has heard people's last breath before they took their own lives. She has helped deliver babies. She trains with the SWAT team. There's a strength there that I appreciate and that I want to make sure that I recognize. But primarily I'm here for my daughters. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I feel that it's my responsibility to help make their world better, to help make whatever future that they see be as inclusive and opportunistic as it possibly can be. And so, with that, I decided that, the DISH Women's Network is a very important way for us to, recognize the differences of each other and help celebrate that and help build each other up. So that's my participation here.
Mike Danley, coming up on 5 years here at DISH. Started on the DISH side, moved over to Sling for about the last 2. And I've always been raised with the idea that you need to be the change that you want to see in the world, no matter what it is. So if you want to change the way that TV's delivered, or if you want to change the way that women are treated in the workplace, whatever it may be, you need to get involved with it yourself. So I like to try to stay motivated and truly understand what the issue is, why it's happening, and what we can do to change it. I think that my approach to, combating the lack of gender diversity within any organization is the same as I approach any problem in an organization. Let's understand what's happening, why is it happening, how can I learn more and do better. I think the Women's Network provides an awesome venue for that, so that people can learn more about it, not only for women, but also, like Michelle said, for guys. We, as individuals, need to learn more. Lots of times we don't understand what we can do to be a better ally, to be a better mentor, so this provides us a unique opportunity to do so.
All right, well, thanks. Nick Rossetti, I've been with the company about 16 years. So I am sitting in for Rob Auger. Ironically.
But not any less important.
No, but
of course.
I probably have as much conversation about this with Rob as anybody in the company. So, but ironically, the reason he is out there, that person canceled on him last minute. So Lauder canceled on Auger. So anyway, but the reason this group is really important to us is obviously I run the field for in-home services, and we have employees everywhere. We are heavily male-oriented, right? So we would love to find a way to recruit more folks into our side of the business at the tech level, at every level. And we promote heavily from within as an organization. Now, we have been reaching out, working with recruiting and trying to bring more women and minorities into the group. But that is some of my perspective. Also, I have 18 nieces and nephews, and it's 9 to 9. So there's 9 males and 9
we start
females.
calling you Uncle Rossetti from now
Uncle
on?
Rossetti. My wife is from a big family. So, but when you think about all those kids, so I mentor a couple of them, and a couple have just graduated. Some of the females just graduated from college. KU was recent this week. So I reached out to her and said, I talked to your brother 30 minutes a month. Do you want to talk to me 30 minutes a month? I don't know if she'll take me up on it yet, because she knows I'll probably ask her too many things, like, what are you doing? Where's your career going? Well, how come you were out so late last night? But, so I think from my perspective, it's just a huge opportunity to make things better for the company and for society.
Awesome. So as you guys look at your experiences, has anything really happened or resonated with you, maybe a conversation with someone, an article that you read, to kind of start your thought process around this and around how you can be an advocate in the workplace?
So I actually had a very specific experience here. It was about 5 years ago. Was meeting with a partner, decent-sized meeting, about a dozen people in there, and one of the project managers on my team, a very smart, brilliant young woman, was in there with me, and the partner, an older gentleman, said, hey thing, or hey something mildly derogatory, go get me a coffee, please. And I was very much taken aback by it, and she didn't say anything. She got the coffee very graciously and brought it in there, and afterwards we had a conversation. I said, well, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you say, hey, that's not my job, or don't call me that, or anything like that? And she tried to explain, hey, you don't understand the difficulty that women have stepping forward and speaking up. I said, well, I probably don't. And she recommended, she said, well, hey, there's this book by a Facebook executive who writes about this thing. So, oh, okay. Read it. So that weekend, I got it on my Kindle, flew through it. It's a quick book. And on Monday, we started doing different exercises as a team, standing in front of the room, talking, making sure that you are the one in charge, that you are the one leading those meetings, that your voice is heard, that you're at the table. And that moment made me realize that, you know what, it's my responsibility as a manager to help build people, help make sure that the women and the men, and really anybody on my team, has the tools and the backing needed to make sure that their voice is heard.
So some recommended reading from Jeremy if you guys haven't read Lean In yet. Awesome. Mike, Nick, Vivek, anything to chime in
Yeah,
on?
I mean, not specific to read it. I mean, you come across multiple articles and then conversations, but it's definitely something, we've discussed both at leadership team levels, discuss it with my wife at home, discuss it at different meetings where we look at it, and I think we all recognize that we have very limited gender diversity across the company, and as you start going up the leadership ranks, and we've always had discussions around what we can do to change that, and how do we help promote more diverse leadership teams, because at the end of the day, even if you just start off it from a pure business standpoint, our customer base is very diverse, and unless we don't understand who our customers are, we can't serve our customers right. So I think when you start putting all of those different pieces together, I think it's just a continuous conversation we've been having for many years. I don't think there's anything one specific that I would point to.
So as we look at organizations, you guys each have teams that you manage, some of you quite large teams. Obviously the IHS organization is very massive. How do you start to look at impacting change at a very high level, and then all the way down to very specific teams? How do you really communicate that?
Well, I think simply it's, having people on your team. It really is recruiting the right folks, men and women, and recruiting women that have the three things that we need, plus grit, as I add to my thing, right? So intelligence, energy, need to achieve. And I would say, going back to the previous question you asked about, like when did I first realize the importance of diversity and all this kind of good stuff? So I grew up in Boston, and I grew up in an Italian-Irish neighborhood, predominantly Catholic. And, that's how we saw the world. And then I had the good fortune of going to prep school in New Hampshire. And it was in the middle of New Hampshire, and it was a Protestant school. So the headmaster came up to me and asked me, how do you feel? Do you feel like you're being discriminated against, or what's going on with that? And I didn't even think there was anything different, right? And I'm saying, I'm okay. Everyone's afraid of me. Maybe you should ask them on that. But I think really getting good people in, and then leveraging your team, talking to the Renee Foltzes of the world and Rochelle Carpenter, who we consider to be part of the leadership team of in-home services. And then how do you bring in, so for you all, right, and for this, how do we make sure that the field, right, is incorporated? And so our people in Roseland, the people, right, and Phoenix and all that kind of good stuff. So I think I don't think we've arrived. I think we've got some work to do there, and just trying to make everyone feel more inclusive to the program.
Well, and IHS is particularly unique because there are offices all across the country, and you could have one woman working in the entire office with 50 men. And so that's where, as a network and as, employees based out of Meridian, I think we have a blind spot to say, how do we reach out to those women? How do we provide a support network? And then also, how do we make sure that the opportunity is known across the organization, that we promote very heavily from within, and where does that opportunity lie? So I think great opportunity for Meridian employees to say, how do we get involved and how do we reach out and break down some of those silos as well?
Yeah, I think continuing on to Nick's point, from a leadership standpoint, I think part of it is us as leaders to make it clear to our teams that it's an important agenda for us, right? So, for example, I'm here today so I can see how my Dish Tech leadership team showed up because I'm here. If I wasn't here, maybe they wouldn't have. Just kidding, guys. Right? But if I think if it's important to me, I think then my team realizes it's important to me. In my past leadership meetings where we've had all of our directors, we've actually had the Women's Network come and talk to the leadership team. It's not going to be, for different people, it's going to be at a different rate. But if it's from a leadership standpoint, for me, it is making sure it's on my agenda. Making sure I talk about it, making sure I'm aware of it, so then the people within the Dish Technologies team and even broader Dish at least understand, yes, it's an important enough topic. I think that itself is the first step most of us can take to make sure that we are not just giving lip service. We are actually saying, yes, it's important. We'll do we'll make the time. We'll take the time to make sure we are doing the activities that promote diversity, inclusion. We'll take the time to mentor people if it's needed, and some level of awareness around it. So I would challenge almost everyone, they're at least showing up for events. That it's something that they're discussing, and that itself would be a good first step.
I think my perspective is a little bit different than Vivek's. I don't quite hold the same position. So, but
Future CTO, Mike Dan.
but I think a big part of it is just needing to be direct.
Yeah.
So I think that you can do a lot of reading and see how important diversity of thought is on any workforce that can help you enter new markets, grow your market share, or even like simple things. One of my teams is user acceptance testing. The way one person uses a product is different than the way somebody else does. So it's important to have that. But how do I achieve that? You need to be direct. Ask your recruiter, hey, I would like to see more female candidates. I think that not all of it's great to have tenacious leaders such as Vivek who are encouraging from a top-down approach that we should have more women in the workforce or on our specific teams, but that also can happen from the bottom up. You don't need to have a manager telling you to do it to be able to take action. Or even maybe you aren't hiring someone, but one of your friends is hiring for their team, and you can be like, hey, have you thought about trying to bring in a female role? No matter what type of position you're in, whether you're a new analyst 2 weeks ago, or if you're the CTO of the organization and you still have an influence and try to help build that diversity across.
We'll get, are we going to talk about hiring a little later? Because there's some challenges there too, but yeah, we can talk about that a little later.
Yeah, so I think that brings us pretty much full circle
Yeah.
into this idea that there are some systematic challenges that every company, every industry is facing right now, which is getting more women into tech, getting more women into the candidate pool, and beyond that, once we have them, how do we keep them and make sure that they're having a fair experience? This can be mentorship, it can be sponsorship, job opportunities, stretch opportunities for projects. So if you guys want to talk a little bit about how, first of all, we bring women in, and second of all, once we get them here, how can we as managers make sure that they're having a fair job opportunity and experience?
So I think that, in my position right now in IT, I have a very unique challenge that there are more jobs in IT than there are people to fill. And so I don't have the luxury of being as selective as I would like to be. Unfortunately, if I'm hiring for skill A and I have 3 people with skill A, most likely they are men. And that's, so I think that, to sort of solve the IT and technical side of that, we've got to start much earlier. We have to start getting more women into STEM education and really encourage that sort of stuff, even starting at elementary school. How do we build that up so that there's a much more diverse pool for us to pull from and bring those people in?
Yeah, I think same issues, right? So we had a conversation with Stephanie, our recruiter, and we said, can we bring in at least one diversity candidate, whether that's gender diversity or African American candidate for every role we have? And right now we are probably in the same boat where we are having a hard time finding candidates itself for the roles we're trying to fill. And I think if we put the hurdle of trying to find a diversity candidate for every role, it gets just a little bit more complicated. So I don't think we're quite there as yet. Maybe as the market dynamics change or over time as we get more people into the workforce with that skill set. So when I went to undergrad school, our class size was 330, and we had 12 women, and the rest were men, right? So, and of course that ratio has changed a little bit over time. It's not changed significantly over time. So, so we have got to start working early, and I think as we echoed, yes, one of the reasons we are here is we all have daughters who are very young, and trying to get them also trained. So it's not a change that'll happen in a day. I think we all have to be aware of it, but to the extent there are roles where we can actually force diversity candidate into the candidate pool, we should be. If there are roles where we cannot right now, just given the mismatch of the talent required and the workforce skill set, then I don't know. We have to figure out how to solve that more in the long term. But short term, there are many roles where we can be saying, hey, you know what, this doesn't require a skill set where we have a mismatch of workforce diversity and skill diversity. So there maybe we should start looking at least bringing them into the pool of resumes. We don't have to necessarily say I'm going to hire someone because it's a gender diversity candidate, but at least start forcing our managers to say, am I looking at someone?
So I would say from in-home services, as the Internet of Everything comes into play, and our workforce is going to change dramatically. And we're in the same boat, right? Right now there's a tremendous battle for labor to do anything right now in the United States, right? The economy is awesome. But as we get more involved with the connected home and we have different skills that'll be needed, right? We'll be recruiting folks. We simply cannot not have 50% of the workforce trying to help us meet the world's needs in that space. So smart cities, smart homes, all the good stuff that we ultimately going to go after. We're messing around with Samsung and appliances, but that's the tip of the iceberg. So we're going to just need a very diverse workforce that can help us meet all the needs that the organization has, right? So in our command center, we try to make sure we have a good balance of candidates and have an even playing field as it relates to men and women. But to Vivek's point, right, right now it is a battle out there, right, trying to get folks into the door. So you just have to be balanced in how you go after it.
And I think part of that too can be a way to provide a little bit more balance is really understand there are certain roles where a person absolutely needs a set of skills. But there are other roles where maybe they don't have the skill set that you're looking for right now, but they have a set of core competencies that can allow them to succeed, and then you can teach them the skills necessary to thrive in that role. I think one of my teams is very unique, running the command center for Sling. It's not something that people have a lot of experience on, so we can make sure, okay, is this person hardworking? Are they studious? Do they have an ability to present themselves appropriately to executives? Can they think on their feet? And as long as they have those core competencies, sure, it would be nice to have somebody who has more visual basic experience or work building dashboards beforehand, but that's something that we can teach to these individuals, whereas it's harder to teach those core competencies. So as managers, it's helpful to really evaluate what we need for this role to succeed and what skills are teachable versus what aren't.
So talking about kind of this candidate pool, and a couple of you guys have daughters, Stanford just released their numbers from last year's graduating class. So since 2010, they went from 11 to 31% female candidates graduating with computer science and electrical engineering degrees. So best case scenario out of that graduating class, you're at 31%. How do you as parents look at that and ensure that, typically around 9 years old, girls stop caring about math, their tests are graded lower just because there's a girl's name on it? Fighting some of those systematic challenges as parents certainly can't be easy. How are you approaching that?
Yeah, I actually, when I grew up, I had an older sister. I still have her, sorry, yeah. So, but she was actually in the top 0.1% of the graduating class in the state. But she never entered the workforce because I think my parents were never too keen on having their daughter in the workforce. And I don't think ever when she was going to school it was, hey, once you graduate you can get into the workforce. It was graduate, get a degree, and then you're going to be a homemaker. Right? So I think when I look back at those experiences too, it's part as a parent to make sure that our daughters and our sons, it doesn't matter, our children just feel like they can do whatever they want, and there is nothing that stops them. And I think every day for us, that's the way we look at it. There is no difference if you're a boy or a girl. It doesn't matter. They both go to Taekwondo if they want to. If they don't want to, they don't do it. It's not based on because you're a boy, because you're a girl. It is based on what your interest is. And so, from a STEM standpoint, of course, our house is a little crazy. We have all kinds of gadgets, so we're always playing with stuff. But they're definitely exposed to a lot of STEM programs. A few weeks ago, we ourselves were playing with Raspberry Pis, but then it doesn't matter whether it's my son or my daughter. We all do the same things together. So I think, just looking back at where my sister, what she could have been doing today versus what she's still very happy what she's doing, but she just didn't have the opportunity. It's up to us to create those opportunities.
Well, for me, my biggest thing that I think that I have to drive with my daughters is being an involved dad. Being in their lives. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to chase around a couple little kids, especially after being here for however long I'm here, and then go home and it's dad duty. But I think that is probably one of the most valuable pieces in a young girl's life is having that father there who can show them that, hey, you know what, I don't treat you any differently than boys or girls, or we all play together. We all go, we all have fun, and give them those opportunities to learn, to grow, to be the young women that they can be.
So to that, we also always get asked about work-life balance in our Leader Series, which is something that, as we look across the industry research, women tend to get asked and men don't. So I would love to hear from each of you on this idea of work-life harmony, as Jeff Bezos said a few weeks ago, work-life balance. Maybe it's a myth. How do you figure it out? And what does that mean for you as men in the workforce?
So I think my perspective on this is probably a little bit different than the rest of the men here because I don't have a family right now. I'm just a single guy living in Denver. But that doesn't mean that...
Was that a pitch?
Yes, Mike's phone number on the back of the screen.
Swipe right.
I'll be around after.
Anyways, but so my perspective is a little bit different. I think but there's a lot of people, there are probably a lot of young women who work for this company as well. So we have different perspective than those who have family. And work-life balance means something different to everyone else. For some people, it's okay, I only want to work maybe 8.5 hours a day, and it's really important for me that I have my weeknights off, but I take my perspective a little bit differently. For me, it kind of ebbs and flows. Some nights I'll stay here working till 11 o'clock just to get things done, but then luckily I have the management structure around me that supports, hey, I can go on vacations for back-to-back weeks. I can take a couple days off here and there to do that, so it's finding what works for you. But then my perspective also changes because my brother just had his first child, and so now I have a niece, and that's really exciting. And so him and his wife have been having conversations about, okay, how can we do this? And it's like Jeremy said, you need to be supportive depending on what you can offer. So my brother's in sales, he works out of a home office, so that gives him a lot bigger opportunity to stay at home and help raise their daughter more while his wife can return to the workforce and continue pursuing her career and advancement. So while it's different for everybody, you need to figure out how you can best adjust your own scenarios to support those around you.
So I'm the empty nester. So my children are out doing their thing, right? But they're still on the payroll, I think. So my
family phone plan.
That's a thing. Yes. But so my wife works. She works for the town of Parker. She has a short commute, and my role requires me to travel quite a bit. And I would say it all comes down to planning, right? Make sure you're aligned. If she has a commitment with work, our family, or whatever, we just have to have that calendar really far out and manage it appropriately, right? So they love it when I'm gone 2 days. Like 2 days, the dog's happy, my wife's happy, everyone's happy, right? Because I'm out of the hair. I'm bothering my team, right? But if I'm gone 4 or 5 days, then that makes a difference. So you have to be very conscientious of what you do in that scenario. But I can speak to Rob Orger. And Rob has 2 children, I think 5 and 3, and his wife is a professional, and he balances it extremely well. So I do want him to be here, of how he goes about it, but it is very much about planning, letting people know, like letting us know, these are important dates to me, like I'm not gonna miss my anniversary, it's the kid's first day, whatever it is, and we have to be accommodating to that, because he's helping out his wife and his family, right? So that, I would say, planning is really really critical to that. And then there's stuff that happens where things come up that you don't know, right? But planning and being on the same page as a family, at least for me and my wife, and that's really critical.
Yeah, I think to build off that, I think being very deliberate with your time. There are times that, you know what, I'm not here, and I don't intend to be here because I'm someplace else doing something that I feel is more important. But that has to be planned out. And I think one of the other big keys, and I know that you guys will agree with this, is building a spectacular team around you. If you have managers and individuals that know their job, that you trust, that you can allow them to take some of that additional burden so that you can go participate in those family things, those things outside these walls, that's key. I've been very fortunate to have some wonderful, wonderful people work for me. And with that, I'm able to step away occasionally. And that ability to step away, to actually really disconnect, is really what allows you to recharge and come back here and really give DISH your best.
Yeah, I think some of you may know my wife. She also works. She's actually traveling. She left yesterday, so I was taking care of the kids yesterday morning and made lunch and sent them off to school. But I think the way we have always approached it, I don't think you can when you say work and life balance, I think for us, work is part of our life. So we don't look at it as work and life balance. We look at it as professional and personal time balance. And so, because I don't think we can separate our work. We're on our phone, whether it's 10 p.m. in the night or 5 a.m. answering emails. It's not like when I go home, I stop working. I am working. And it's not like when you're at work in the office, and if I get a call from my kid's school, I don't stop thinking about it because I'm at work, and that's part of life. So I think it's always been professional and personal. As Nick said, some of it is about planning, making sure that you know when you're taking time off for your personal activities versus your professional activities. Some of it is about making choices. So, like I said, our kids are 10 and 12, and we have both been working since before they were born. And so we like to spend time with the kids on the weekends. So we've made choices that the kids they're not part of a soccer team, they're not part of a football or a baseball team. So we are not, so we are not on Saturdays going to tournaments. We are spending time with them, doing stuff that they like and we like. And maybe 15 years from now, they might say, hey, Dad, you never put me in that baseball league. Might be okay, because for us, that's a choice we have made, that we want to spend time with them over the weekend rather than doing something else where we're not spending the same quality time that and that's again a choice that everybody has to make for themselves. For somebody else, the choice might be to be part of the baseball league. So I'm not saying one thing's right or wrong, but you have to be deliberate about your choice, and you have to know there are pros and cons to everything, and you have to go eyes wide open. So for us, our choices are around balancing our professional and personal lives, balancing our weekend time versus our weekday time, and then each of us just naturally step in. If I'm traveling 3 days a week or she's traveling 3 days a week, we figure out how to do it. So, and of course, we have a great nanny. So.
Awesome. So a couple of you guys made comments on figuring it out for yourself, right? It might be different for everybody. How do you foster that on your teams and provide Rob the head cover he needs to if he has a sick kid, or if Danley wants to go, he just ran a couple of releases and he wants to go on vacation. What does that look like, and how do you make sure that
I don't know who's letting
it?
Danley go on back-to-back vacations.
He's never going again.
We need to have a conversation
Secret's
about that
out.
later.
Sorry, buddy.
Yep. So I'm a big proponent of servant leadership. I truly believe that I am working for my team. And for that, I want to make sure that they feel empowered to come to things like this, that they feel empowered to go to other activities that might help build them and grow them as people. And so for me, running a team and running people, it's really about them, and I want to make sure that that's felt and known amongst all of my team members.
In line with what Jeremy said, there's a very direct approach to doing that, which is something that we employed was, so one of my team's goals for the year is foster an environment which is more conducive to women in the workplace. So rather than talking about things conceptually, we can also take actions to do so. Not implying that Jeremy is not. We know that he is an excellent ally for women within the organization. But for me, I didn't really know how to approach this situation. I know that this is a problem that we need to address, and I wasn't sure what to do. So I set that forward as a goal for my team, and then we can all collaborate together. People can come up with different ideas. So we've started a book club, reading books so we can have more information, listening to podcasts, sitting down at a brewery after work and having beers and talking about gender inequality in the workplace and what we can do to address it. And just building knowledge. Sometimes it's not about what actions we can take, it's also just understanding what other people are going through at that time. If it's, sometimes maybe there's a one-off comment, like Jeremy said in his first story, or maybe it's there's a lack of female leaders within the organization. You're struggling to find a mentor, so then as a manager you can help them find a mentor. But there's lots to be learned, so I think that making tangible, achievable goals is a good way to create an environment that can be different than what we see today, or be better than what we see today.
I would say to everybody is, to our team, I say it all the time, is that you really have to leverage everybody on your team, right? And you have to really communicate effectively with everybody, with each other, right? And no person should carry an inappropriate burden. And if everybody on the team is working together and effectively, and everyone's putting in the same amount of energy and effort and communicating effectively, life is much better, and it allows us all to do more things together, right? Whether it's your own life or business. So McCarty has two kids as well, right? So we got to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and that if we do have to cover, if I'm out or I'm traveling, like we get the Monday morning meetings, whatever, you in advance make sure you're letting people know, McCarty, you got it this week, you got the financial review, Renee, you have this, you're gonna cover this, right? So try to make sure that we leverage each other, we trust each other, we have confidence in each other. So for those who are leaders of teams, you got to make sure everybody on your team is really, really good. And
Yeah, I think I'll just echo, I think a lot of it is communication, open, direct communication, understanding what issues each person has and how we can help them out. Also, I think that definitely is, at least when I look at it, Dish Technologies is a large team. What I try to do is make sure that we are fair and equal to everybody, though, right? I mean, we can't also have special preferences for one person. Am I being fair? Because at some point we have to, if there's one person who needs time off and the other person's not getting it, that's not fair too. So I think we have to balance it out by being fair and equal, but also trying to understand how each of us can leverage the other person. It's not like, hey, if you're coming in late this morning because you had to drop your kid to school, there seems to be some preconceived notion that that's not allowed or that's not a good thing. I think it's just about communication. That's all that's supposed to mean, which is, hey, you know what, make sure you're thinking about your teammates also and do it. So I think open communication is definitely the biggest part of it. Just letting people know what you have upcoming. There's always going to be emergencies and you can't plan for them, but if you've communicated 95% of the things that you could have planned for, I think all managers are going to be probably fair on the 5% that you couldn't have planned for.
So something that we hear a lot about is diversity on boards, diversity in executive leadership, and currently we're about 100 years away from hitting equality in the gender scope specifically. And Lean In has done a ton of work around this with McKinsey, and I don't think anyone has figured this out, but as leaders of talent, how do you start to look and say, hey, the people in your organizations in 20 years will be leading companies, will hopefully be on boards, and what responsibility do you feel to kind of help maybe get away from the 100 years and bring us down closer to, something like 50, I don't know, 25,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough, I'm not sure I have a great answer for that question right now, but I think it's not going to change overnight. I think as you rightly pointed out, many organizations are trying to change it. I think also, as Charlie's often stated, we don't and actually I think about my wife, you don't want to hire someone for gender diversity. You want to hire someone for their skill set and hope that along with that comes all kinds of other diversity in thinking and thought and gender and everything else. So a lot of it is starting from, all the way from our kids and grooming them so they're there. Some of it is making sure that as we are thinking of the next set of leaders, we're giving equal opportunity to everyone. When we are thinking of who's going to be in the next climb class, because that's going to be the next set of leaders here at DISH. When we're thinking about who's going to be, who are we hiring, I think we have to be making at every step we have to be conscious. We have to offer our assistance in making sure that anybody that wants to be mentored, wants to ask those questions, wants those opportunities, does get them. And at least provide an equal playing field to everyone. I think that is on us. And then once you provide the equal playing field, I think then every candidate has to, as long as they get the opportunity, I think you will automatically start seeing that diversity, because I don't think there's one set of, whether it's gender diversity or, Indians or African Americans, I don't think any one set is more brilliant or more smarter than the other. They all, I think, given an equal playing field, they'll all rise the same. So at some point we should see our teams reflect the natural population of the country.
I think that there's, in addition to hiring and bringing in sort of a younger generation, there's also an opportunity for us to retain the diversity that we have.
I agree.
By utilizing programs like this and conversations like we're having, helps build that, hey, you know what, you are a welcome person here, no matter what sort of boxes you check. And making sure that we are doing what we can to make sure that talent's not walking out the door and going someplace else.
As an expansion of both of those ideas, I think a concept that's very applicable here is managing up. So in lots of cases, it would be awesome if everybody had the perfect manager who's the best ally and advocate that they can be, but that's not always the case. So sometimes it's on us to not only help those at the same level or those who report to us, but provide feedback to those above us. Hey, you shouldn't make comments like that. Hey, you refer to me as a man, you refer to her as a girl, you should call her a woman. Little things like that can make a difference. So I think that it's a challenge and you have to do it in the correct manner, but we can also put pressure on the people above us to make change in the organization. I think that maybe this is me just speaking as a younger individual who doesn't have as much influence.
Who's your manager, by the way?
And he's available.
But feedback needs to be a two-way street. Like just when you're sitting down on a one-on-one with your boss, it shouldn't just be them telling you what you can improve on. You can tell them what they should improve on. Hey, there's not enough female mentors in the organization. I don't have a lot of female figures that I can look up to, and that's a challenge for individuals on my team. If you're just having that conversation, having that open communication, that's a good way to help foster change.
So with that, a lot of those conversations are hard to have, right? These are not easy topics to talk about all the time. How do you approach that, and how do you make sure that your team feels comfortable doing the same with you? Or maybe you don't.
No, I think I think for the group, right, for everybody, you should take advantage of like a coffee with Carlson, right? And I'm doing, I'm starting this thing called Nick at Noon. So
Nick, this wasn't a marketing pitch.
And I'll be doing recruiting there for good salespeople.
Yeah.
But we've only had one. Kayla was there, and but I stole it from Nick Saban from Alabama. He does that. But I think like participating in that, getting to know people in a different light as opposed to just a hierarchy. I would say Renee Foltz is not shy about giving me feedback when perhaps I cross the line, not on some of the stuff you talking about, other things, but I think being able to have the ability to say, have a tough conversation, or I don't think we're going the right strategy. I think you're doing, we shouldn't be going this path. We got to go market this way or do something differently, right? But you have to have relationships, and I'd say that all the folks have to have the ability to say, this is what I think we should be doing. And when you have the opportunity, to be the profile person or to present, I'm looking at my team, right? You got to take it, right? We want to hear from you. But guess what'll happen maybe? We may not agree. And you got to be prepared, right? You got to know your business, right? So that's all I would say. Sarah, think that's fair? Or? Okay.
I think as a manager, you have to let your team know that it's okay to talk, that it's okay to vent your frustration. It's okay to come to you with things that they may not agree with. But I think most importantly, as a manager, not only do you have to say that, but then you have to also follow up with those actions. You can't just take that information and then go manipulate it and go do something else with it. You have to build and then maintain that trust with everybody that you work with. And that's, I think, one of the big keys with, building that with your team, that hey, you know what, this is safe to talk about. We can talk about anything. I may not agree, I may have a different opinion, but we can talk about anything. And that you really have to build that trust amongst your peers and your team and even those above you.
Yeah, I think at least I've tried to make sure we have a forum where people feel comfortable to talk about things. Whether it's my direct reports, on my one-on-ones, or even on my Coffee with Vivek.
Coffee with Vivek.
But I think a lot of it is listening.
Vegan with Vivek.
Vegan with Vivek.
I don't
What
know.
does that mean?
I don't know. I'm just saying. Tofu. I don't know.
Thanks, Nick. See, that's called stereotyping again, right? So,
What did you have for lunch? What did he have for lunch?
Stop
He did just eat
stereotyping.
tofu for lunch. I'm just gonna say.
But I think a part of it is, and if you don't feel comfortable talking to your managers, I do honestly feel that amongst the leadership team, amongst the management team broadly, you can send an email to anyone and go talk to them. I don't get enough of them. I don't get enough people saying, hey, you know what, can I come and catch up with you for 15 minutes, or here's something I want to talk about. I'd be happy to do it. The few I do get, I spend the time with them. But I don't see enough of those. So I think there's I don't know whether there's a block somewhere where we tell people you can't reach out, but it's okay to reach out. And it's okay to ask for people for the time. I think you'll be surprised how many people would be happy to give you their time and talk about topics that you might think are difficult topics. But if it's not easy to talk directly to your manager, go somewhere else, find somebody to talk to.
And I'll extend that invitation as well. I will talk to anybody. I will take 30 minutes out of my day. I think this is important enough that I will make sure that I make time for that. And I know that these guys echo that same
And I'll
sentiment.
extend it on behalf of Brian Nealon also.
Yeah.
And I think part of it too is find your allies. So perhaps there's an individual that you want to raise a concern to, but like Michelle was saying, you don't have that level of comfort. That's too intimidating of a conversation. Well, then find an ally. Find a friend who you do have that rapport with and be like, hey, I know you have a good friendship with this person. I really think this needs to be addressed with them. I'm not comfortable doing so. Would you be comfortable doing that for me? So just build that network. And on the flip side, be an ally. Offer that support to other individuals. If you think that they want to say something and it seems like they're hesitating, reach out to them. Be like, hey, is there any way I can help you with this? Do you want me to help you craft your message? Do you want me to deliver the message for you? This is an ally panel, right? We should all learn to be better allies.
So in the vein of that exact comment, and as we get kind of close on time, for the first step, for someone who maybe hasn't come to an event before, doesn't know how to get started, what would your advice be?
Learn. I don't know a thing about rocket science. If I wanted to learn more about rocket science, I would go to YouTube and find videos about it, and maybe buy a book about it and try to read more. I'd look up different research studies that have been done online. Same thing can be done with this. So maybe this is a concept that seems foreign to you. Maybe gender diversity isn't something that you know a lot about. So there are plenty of very interesting books. There are podcasts. You can go talk to somebody like Jeremy who's more well-versed in this area, and he can help paint the picture for you. Approach it like you would any problem and just use the resources around you to learn more. And then from there, that can build your foundation to grow from there.
I think partly up to us and part of the Women's Network to understand why people haven't attended an event either, right? So what's the perception? Is there a perception gap? Is there a reason why people are saying either they don't have the time, or we're not organizing at the time it works, or they think that big part of it is not going to help them? I think we need to understand that too and see why people haven't come for any event. And I think if we can at least get them to start the first event, then we can start the learning process.
Absolutely. There's a lot of opportunities given to learn more about a wide variety of things. One of the big things at the DISH Women's Network, we had the VP from Western Union come over, and her entire talk was work-life balance. How do you, as a busy executive, balance a family life and a home life and things like that? And she really just spent about 45 minutes giving tips and tricks on how, hey, utilize grocery delivery services. That gives you an hour back. And it was like, well, that's brilliant. And it was one of those just simple things, right? I'm taking notes, and many of them I've now incorporated into my world that, hey, you know what? If I don't like doing something, why am I spending the time and the money to go do that? And so if you want to get started, just know that some of the conversations aren't just about women's issues. Most of them pertain to everybody. And come to events like this and learn, and you can learn a lot of different skill sets associated with just being a person.
Any other last advice?
I just say, get involved, right? Get people to, as much as I encourage a few folks that I know, right? What is the value proposition? And they should come. And it's not just for women, right? It's for exactly what Jeremy just said. So, and I would say that we're pretty siloed as a group, right? So if in-home services doesn't have as many women mentors as you would like, reach across the table. Go to Shannon, go to Melissa, right? Go to Sarah Grabowski. Go to other groups, Nancy and Mike. So there's a lot more than just inside your own group to leverage and network with and try to figure out things.
Maybe we should say for the next Women's Network meeting, everyone that's attending should bring a friend who's never been to a network meeting before.
Okay.
So
That's
that
your
might be the
homework.
greatest step.
That's an action plan. There's your action
There's your
item.
action.
So just to close, first of all, thank you guys. This was very, I think, well, you guys will be the judge based on how loud you clap.
Woo! And sign-up sheet for Nick at noon is out on the table on the way out.
And if you're not members, thank you for coming today. You can get signed up on our website, which is dishwomensnetwork.com. Encourage your teams to come. Please stay involved. And beyond that, thank you guys so much. And thank you to everyone for being here today. And we hope you enjoyed. So with that, a final thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.